All right, got that started. All right, before we get started, I want to just please ask everybody to mute themselves so we don't have distracting noise in the background. We are recording this so that others can view it at a later time. If you have any questions, I will be taking a brief about any of the species. I have it broken up by species. So if you do have any questions throughout, if you could wait until that time, you can post them in the chat, and then I will go through the chat in between species and try to answer any questions at that time. Go ahead and get started, Laura. Oh, we got more people entering. Hold on.
We can start whenever you're ready, Shannon.
Okay. All right. So I am here this evening to discuss the livestock health regulations for all of the fairs in New York State, the county fairs and the New York State Fair.
You want to listen?
Somebody is not muted. Please mute yourself. Thank you. I am Dr. Shannon Carpenter with New York State Department of Ag and Markets, and I am currently the NYS coordinator and the interim field veterinarian for Chautauqua, Cattaraugus, Allegheny, and Erie counties. And I'm still hearing somebody talking here. Just a minute. Let me go down through. I can mute people from my end. There we go.
I think you might be good, Shannon.
I think I just fixed it. Okay. So here is a list of all of the New York State field veterinarians across New York State, and what counties each of them covers. So if you are going to a fair and a county fair in one of the other areas, these would more than likely be the vets that you will run across at those fairs as the person checking in the animals. We do in New York State, if there's people from out of state participating in this evening, we do check in every animal that enters the fairgrounds, whether it be a county fair or the New York State Fair. So be sure to have your health work complete, correct, and ready to go when you arrive. It helps speed up the process immensely. And this here is a list of all of our animal health inspectors. They are extremely helpful during fair season and checking in all of the animals. The two primary ones that typically work with me in Erie County are going to be Anne Marie Brady and Sarah Mountain, who are both on this meeting this evening. They will definitely be helping, and along with a couple other vets and possibly another couple technicians on the busy days. Last year was an extremely rough fair season, to say the least. Please Please be respectful to our veterinary staff. Fair season is long and grueling for us, and we are basically there protecting public health and animal health at the same time. The diseases that we are looking for are all diseases that are zoonotic, so humans can, get these diseases as well, and we can't have animals that are infected with certain diseases be present at the fair when we have general public walking through who are going to fail to mention to their primary care doctor that they had been to the fair and their doctor has no idea what they could have potentially been exposed to. That's the purpose for us checking in the animals to be sure that all of their health requirements have been met and also that that none of them are coming in with a contagious disease or a zoonotic disease. We also ask to be respectful to the fair board. They are trying to run a fair for everybody to participate in. And, like I said, we all try to work together to make it an enjoyable um, summer for everybody, an enjoyable week, an enjoyable couple weeks, depending on which fair you're going to. I would ask that you please don't bring sick animals to the fair. Um, That takes up a lot of extra time. If you know that animal has something that you're likely gonna get kicked out for, just leave it at home. Don't even bring it. It takes up a lot of extra time on our part. We have to make sure that the fair is involved, making sure that those animals, uh, leave the fairgrounds, leave the premise. And, another complaint that we had last year from a couple of the fairs was they showed up and had to wait. They showed up towards the end of the check-in and had to wait for a while, before they got checked in. When everybody shows up in the last 15 minutes of check-in, it's really hard to get you all checked in at the same time. We only have so many personnel at any one time checking in animals. So please try to show up. The earlier you show up, the easier it is for us to get everybody checked in a timely fashion. We do try to check in off the trailer because it is much safer and more efficient for us versus running around trying to find, because we have possibly sick animals that are in a pen, contaminating the pen and the barn, and then we are spreading disease to the other animals that are potentially there. But it's also more efficient for us that we're not running around trying to find an owner. If we can catch you right off the trailer, it speeds up the process. And as I said, our goal is to prevent the spread of any contagious and zoonotic diseases to the animals, the exhibitors, and all of the spectators at the fair. I'm going to start out with swine. Swine need to have official identification. There are some options. We do prefer, but they are not required. We do prefer the 840 RFID tags. If you are from New York, you can get free tags from Department of Ag and Markets for New York residents only. You can contact myself if you are within my 4-county area. Even if you aren't, you can still contact me. I can email you the order form and you can send it in to the Albany office and they will send you your tags. Many of our field vet or herd vet private veterinarians out in the different counties have tags available that they have received from us. A few of the 4-H offices in some counties also have some tags. If you are an open class exhibitor, you must either order from us through Ag and Markets, your private vet, or you need to order them on your own. If you are ordering them on your own, you will need to have your premise ID number for your farm. If you are a New York resident, you can call us and we can look that up. If you do not have a premise ID number, we can get one set up for you. And then you would be able to order from a supply company. We also will still accept the premise ID tags that have your premise ID number along with an individual animal ID number on them. Your vet should be putting both the premise ID number as well as the individual animal ID number on your health certificate when they're filling it out. So that would be, if you can see my cursor, the ABC 1234 is your premise, and 2241 would be your individual animal ID. Most of the premises, actually, like this New York tag over here, start with a 00 with a premise. We are still accepting the dreaded metal tags. Nobody likes metal tags. Because they do, especially in pigs, they do tend to cause irritation, infection, and whatnot. But we are still accepting them for the time being. The 21 PBR 9276 here. So this is an example of a tag that was issued to a producer. It starts with the 21P. And then down at the bottom here, these 21 EE tags. These are swine and cervid tags that we used to have, or we used to distribute all the time. We are no longer manufacturing them. What we have is some of us have a few of them, and we're primarily using them in deer right now. But if people still have them at their premise, you are free to still use those tags as official ID. These here are a few different styles of bangle tags that we have had in the past. The 21 CAA, these are a larger bangle tags. These NY tags are also, these are a little bit smaller than these other ones. And then the smaller ones that are about the size of a scrapey tag. And unfortunately, people would mix them up with scrapey tags. But if it starts with a 21, then it's intended for either swine, cattle, or deer. So please don't use those on your sheep and goats. They are intended for the other species. On official ID, one thing that you can look at is making sure that your tags have the US shield on them. Typically, the US shield is going to mean that these are official tags. So for the pigs, the electronic tags, we will accept the 840 tags if they're born in the US, 124 tags if they're born in Canada, 484 if they're born in Mexico. Every country has their own 3-digit number, and they are all a 15-digit number tag. These tags can actually be RFID, so radio frequency. They have a chip in them that we can read, or they can be a visual tag, which they are typically a very thin tag with just the 840 number. They can be a little bit more difficult to clean. If you do have one of those in your animal, it would be wise to make sure that you have those cleaned off, so we don't have to take time trying to clean those when we are checking them in. Baby wipes usually work really well at cleaning them up. Pigs also, in addition to official ID, they need to have a certificate of veterinary inspection, otherwise known as a health certificate. These can be completed anytime after May 1st if you are your pig is on a New York premise. Your vet should be writing any man-made identification on the health certificate as well as the official ID. That would include any bangle tags, ear notches, or any other type of non-official ID as well as the official ID. If you plan to take a sow to the fair that is nursing piglets, the sow needs to have official ID in her ear. However, the piglets do not. The piglets would need to somehow be listed on the health certificate with an accurate count and a brief description. So that may include 9 piglets total. We have 5 black piglets and 4 white piglets, or we have 5 females and 4 males. However that may be, some sort of identification on there. We try to remind people not to write on the CVI. If you write on the CVI, then that is basically forging a medical document, and it can actually invalidate the document. Only your vet should be writing on the CVI. This is an example of what our intrastate, so a New York owner going to a New York fair, what the exhibition certificate of veterinary inspection looks like. The vet should be writing out the owner, their address, what county they live in, what species. For any health certificates, it does not matter if it's an intrastate or an interstate health certificate. They all are one species per certificate. If you have dairy and beef, they are all bovine. They can all go on the same certificate, but you cannot have your pigs, your cattle, your sheep, your goats all on one certificate. Your vet should be writing all of the animal identification on this column, and then what breed it is, what gender, what age, and then these columns here can be left blank on the pigs. And then your vet should be writing how many animals they inspected above. They should be putting the date that they inspected the animals. They should be signing it, have their accreditation number, have their name printed, their address, a phone, and at least a phone number. Many of them don't have fax numbers anymore, but they should have at least a phone number on there. The reason for that is so we have quick access to call them if there happens to be a question on the health certificate, or if we need to get in touch with them because we're seeing a potential illness or it looks like the animal has been ill, we can communicate with them easily. Rabies requirement for swine. Most of the county fairs do not require rabies vaccine. However, we do recommend it. The reason being is that there is no approved rabies vaccine for swine, and each county's health department determines whether or not the swine or the species that we do not have rabies vaccine labeled for, they determine whether or not those animals are going to be vaccinated or not. A reminder, if you are going to vaccinate, that most of the rabies vaccine has a 21-day slaughter withhold on it, and this needs to be adhered to for all the market animals. So if you are going to be selling your animal, you need to be sure that that vaccine was given at least 21 days prior to the auction. The animals also, if you are vaccinating them, they must be 4 months of age or older to be vaccinated. However, they can be vaccinated beginning at 3 months of age, and it will still be active and be fine. The vaccine requirement, if they need to be vaccinated, depending on the fair that they are going to, that must be met by the day of admission to the fair. And the rabies vaccine is good for 1 year from the date of vaccination. This is a list of counties and fairs. So New York State Fair requires all species to be vaccinated against rabies, as well as these other counties. So Clinton, Cortland, Essex, Franklin, Livingston, St. Lawrence, and Tioga all require all species to be vaccinated. Out-of-state requirements. For those of you from out of state, the pigs still are required to have official identification. They need to have an interstate CVI that needs to be issued within 30 days of entry into the New York State, and that certificate is only good for 30 days. If you are going to one of the counties that requires the rabies vaccine, then the rabies vaccine would be required. Also, it's good to always check out the www.interstatelivestock.com website for any current interstate regulations that may have gone into effect, as well as the fair requirements. Sometimes interstate requirements and The fair requirements don't always 100% line up, so make sure you are meeting both the fair requirements and the interstate requirements. And that goes for, it doesn't matter what state you're going to. It doesn't matter what state you're going to. You should utilize this interstatelivestock.com website. Most all of the states keep it up to date. And also refer to the animal health requirements for the show that you are attending, because there may be additional things that you need to do. Other information, just a few fun facts here. We do not typically house swine and poultry in the same facility or barn because of the potential spread of influenza viruses. Human, swine, and poultry can their influenza viruses can actually reproduce in large quantities, and they can recombinate and allow the virus to create a more deadly virus. So that's why we keep them separate. Please do not bring animals with contagious diseases to the fair. Can't say that enough. This is a non-inclusive list of potential I'm gonna try to get this out of my screen here. There we go. Non-inclusive list of potential reasons why your animals may be rejected from the fair. Respiratory infection. So if we have runny eyes and a snotty nose that looks like it has been there for a while, these animals are acting sluggish, then chances are that animal will be sent home. Occasionally, we do see animals that have been in a trailer. I mean, we try to use common sense. Dust gets blown around from the sawdust. We do understand that, so we do take that into account. Anything that appears to be foot and mouth disease like lesions, they definitely would be rejected right away. If this animal was to go into a pen and was not checked in off the trailer, then we likely would have to quarantine the fair, the animals that are already there, as well as not allow any new animals to come in. Because we would have to be sure, we'd have to rule out foot and mouth disease before we could proceed. So that is one of the reasons why we are checking in off the trailer when at all possible. Mange, we have pigs that sometimes have extreme crustiness, and sometimes it's all over their body. Sometimes it's just on their face. That is typically an indicator that they have mange, especially if they are itching and scratching constantly. Ringworm. I was told last year that pigs do not get ringworm, but pigs do indeed get ringworm. It's not as frequent as some of the other species, but they do indeed get ringworm. If it's just areas where there's hair loss, that is fine, but if it's at all crusty, those animals will be sent home. Some non-contagious issues. If your animal is not listed on the health certificate, it will go home. If there's no ID, so this includes the tag in the owner's hand and it's not in the animal's ear, then we can ship those animals home. If any potential required vaccination, so if you are at one of the fairs that requires rabies vaccination, we can send you home if the animal has not had their rabies vaccination. If your health certificate is outdated, so in New York, it needs to be dated anytime May 1st or later. If you are from out of state, it needs to be done within 30 days of entry to the fair. And any unsightly, non-contagious pathology, for example, this rectal prolapse. We don't need to be promoting bad stuff to the general public. Occasionally we see some of this stuff that happens at the fair and we try to tend to it. If it doesn't resolve, then we will sometimes send those animals home after they have already arrived. And we have sent animals home because they have become sick at the fair. So just because you get in doesn't mean that you have a free pass to stay the entire time either. Um, that needs to be understood. If we have an animal that becomes ill during the fair, then we definitely will send those animals home. They don't need to be at the fair exposing all of the other animals and being stressed out because they are there. Chances are that's the reason they got sick is because they were stressed out. A few reminders. All health work for any New York animals can be done anytime after May 1st. Please do not wait until the last minute to call the vet. Large animal vets are few and far between in some areas. I know down here, Chautauqua, Cattaraugus counties, Allegheny counties, there are very few vets. So don't wait until the last minute. If you are looking to get an appointment even in June, I would be calling now to get your appointment. That way you know that you are on the schedule. If you have any questions, you feel free to call me, email me, text me. You can do the same to any of our staff, vets or techs. If they don't know the answer, they will probably refer you to another person or whatnot. But we can try to uh, help decide if an animal may or may not pass inspection, or if you think that your health certificate doesn't look right, we can take a look at your health certificate ahead of time and make sure. I usually have a handful of people that will send me pictures of either their health certificate or pictures of their animals ahead of time, just to see what my thoughts might be. Sometimes they're under the expectation that they still may get shipped home. Um, but there's my phone number. That is a cell phone, and so I do text and my email address. A reminder, please do not use blue coat and red coat in food producing animals at all. Um, these products are not approved by the FDA. Since they are not approved by the FDA, there is no extra label drug use allowed in them. We have no idea what the slaughter withhold time for these products is. And with this, we end up every year, animals end up getting rejected from the market sales because of blue coat or red coat, because we have no idea what the slaughter withhold time is. And these products are also carcinogenic to humans. So that's why they do not want them being used in food animals. Any questions on pigs? Not getting to my, whoops. Chat. Anything in the chat? I don't see anything in the chat yet. All right. Then I'm going to go on. Maybe there to sheep and goats. Sheep and goats are also required to have official identification. This can be with a USDA approved scrapie tag, or if they are registered with a registration certificate, then they need to have legible, easily readable, official registry tattoos. If you cannot read the tattoo, if your vet cannot read the tattoo, please redo the tattoo or leave the animal at home. Some of the tattoos that we see are so light. We do not, I tell people I do not have an imaginoscope to imagine what the tattoo may be. And every year I know we tell people by next year, you're going to need to redo this tattoo. And I know we're seeing some of the same animals back again and again and again. Your vet should actually be looking at those tattoos and determining if they can't read it, then it needs to be redone. Like I said, if you can't read it, it needs to be redone. They can also have a legible USDA assigned flock ID tattoo in the right ear and the individual animal number in the left ear. And then there are some breed associations that are allowing the use of microchips. If the microchip is placed by the ear, and this is primarily in goats, so if the microchip is placed by the ear, then they also must have an E tattoo in one of their ears. If the microchip is placed by the tail, they are supposed to have an ET tattoo in their ear. So it identifies that they have an electronic chip, and if it's E, then it's by the ear as well. And if it has a T next to it, then that means it's by the tail. So electronic by the tail. These are some photos of the traditional scrapey tags. We have the traditional plastic tags. We have some of the dreaded metal tags in all species. They're dreaded. um, as well as they do have 840 tags that have the flock number as well as individual animal number and their 840 number. All three of those numbers, if you had an 840 tag, would have to be on the health certificate. For the traditional scrapey tags, it would be the flock ID as well as the individual animal number. These tags here, this is the number. It's 4 letters, 4 numbers. And USDA also has a plastic clip that looks very similar to the metal clips. They're Shearwell tags. They come in a scrapey. They have the flock ID, the individual animal ID, and some of them now actually are RFID and they have a chip in them. So they are very, very nice tags I have seen, and people have been pretty happy with those so far. Blue slaughter tags. Blue slaughter tags, slaughter only tags in sheep and goats mean that an animal has crossed a state line through livestock markets or livestock dealer channels, and they cross the state line without a health certificate. So those guys are required to put a meat only tag or slaughter only tag in those animals, and they are not to be exhibited or sold for breeding purposes. These animals are supposed to be slaughtered within 6 days of purchase. So we will not accept any blue slaughter or blue meat tags at any of the fairs. The registry tattoos will have your registered herd tattoo as well as in the right ear, and in the left ear, it will have their year of birth code as well as the individual animal number. And your USDA approved tattoos, scrapey tattoos would have the NY for a New York animal, as well as your flock ID number. Many of those are 5 to 6 digits long, as well as the individual animal number over here in the left ear. So both of those would need to be on the health certificate. Rabies vaccination for sheep and goats. Sheep are required to be vaccinated at all of the county fairs and New York State Fair. It is highly recommended for goats, but it is not required unless they are going to one of the fairs that does require it, which is the same as pigs. There's not a rabies vaccine approved for goats. Again, they need to be at least 3 months of age to be vaccinated, but they don't have to be vaccinated at 3 months of age. They need to be vaccinated by 4 months of age or older. The proof must be written on the health certificate. The rabies vaccine, again, has a 21-day slaughter withhold, so be mindful of this if you have a market animal. Again, the vaccine lasts for 1 year. In sheep, however, if your vet is using the MRAB large animal brand of vaccine and you maintain proof that a certain animal has been vaccinated in the previous year, then the second vaccine that that animal receives could be a 3-year vaccine as long as you're keeping appropriate records. And vaccination must be met on the day of admission to the fair in most of the counties. I believe that there is one county in the state that requires them to be vaccinated at least 2 weeks ahead of time. Again, the list for the fairs requiring rabies vaccine in goats, it's the exact same fairs um, as for pigs. And right here, Essex County Fair is the one that the rabies vaccine for any species actually must be done 14 days prior to entry. Health certificate. So all of the sheep and all of the goats, and they are two different species, caprine versus ovine. They all need to have a health certificate. So ovine on one certificate, caprine on the other. And these can be done anytime after May 1st for New York animals. Any other man-made identification should also be recorded. This is very helpful if you have an animal that happens to lose their official ID on the way to the fair. It may allow you to be able to stay while you get the problem corrected. Again, please do not write on the health certificate. Only the vet should write on it, and all other writing can invalidate it. Again, here is an example of the certificate of veterinary inspection. I am not going to go through everything that needs to be filled out. I guess one thing I did not mention is down here, this official use box. Please do not write on that. Write in that. That is where we right. Oh, and I am just receiving a note. Orleans County Fair also requires goats to be vaccinated for rabies as well. They do not have any open goat shows, but Orleans County should be added for the goats that need to be vaccinated. Out of state requirements. Again, they need official identification. So either the tattoos or the scrapey tags. They need to have an interstate health certificate that needs to be issued within 30 days of entry into New York State, and that will only be good for 30 days. Rabies vaccination, if it's required. So it's sheep, definitely. Goats, depending on what fair you're going to, would determine if you needed that. Always refer to the interstatelivestock.com for your current interstate regulations. And also, if no matter where you're going, refer to the regulations for whatever show you are attending. Other information. While we are checking in the sheep and goats, we will be inspecting their mouths for any evidence of sore mouth. If there is any evidence of sore mouth, the entire flock or load will be rejected. If multiple exhibitors are coming on the same trailer, everything that's on that trailer will be rejected. Sheep and goats that are from the same premise, they will all be rejected. That's a highly contagious disease that is highly contagious to humans, and we do not need it spreading. Last year was a horrible year for sore mouth, and I am hopeful that maybe everybody has some immunity now because of exposure, and maybe this year will be a great year and we will not have to reject anybody for it, but crossing my fingers. We also do not allow any lambing or kidding at the fair unless there is an approved birthing demonstration area for them. Any animals that have recently given birth and have excessive uterine discharge will also not be permitted. The uterine discharge after birth, all of that carries diseases potentially like scrapie, Q fever, chlamydia. Those are definitely primary concerns. All of these could be potentially contagious to humans, especially Q fever and chlamydia, and we really do not need pregnant women or other people exposed to those diseases. One other point, we typically do not house sheep and goats with cattle in the same barns, and this is due to the potential spread of malignant catarrhal fever. Sheep especially, goats, maybe slightly to moderately can carry the malignant catarrhal fever virus, and cattle are a dead end host and they typically die from it. You typically do not even know that your hold on, admitting somebody here. You typically do not know that your sheep or goats even carry the virus until you have a bovine that succumbs to the disease. So these are some examples. This here is a goat that has a very small little blister right there. Here we have some blisters along the front that are getting larger. You can see these ones are starting to look a little bit drier. Here we have a large, very dry lesion. Here we have crust all over the nose. Here we can see evidence that this animal, the crusts have started falling off. And this one here looks like it's starting to heal as well. It looks like the crust has fallen off, also has a crust still up here on its nose. These photos were taken during last fair season in my territory, the fairs that I was checking in at. So these are not just internet photos from anywhere. These are real life. This is what we saw. Other reasons for rejection, as I mentioned, birthing, the placenta, the amniotic fluid, all of that can be contagious. So please do not bring pregnant or animals that are due to give birth or animals that have just given birth to the fair. Ringworm. Ringworm typically presents as crusty circular lesions, typically on the face and on the neck. In sheep, it tends to be these raised circles is what you tend to see first, and then the wool will fall out in those areas. On these lambs that have black highlights of black ears and face, a lot of times the spots will actually, as they heal, it'll be black spots of wool instead of all white like you typically will see. So that would be a reason to be shipped home. Caseous lymphadenitis or any abscesses for that matter, we cannot determine if it's CL or just a generic abscess while we're at the fair. So any abscesses will go home. So here we have abscesses under the chin, under the ear, on the neck. So any of those would be sent home. Any obvious foot rot, so if we smell it, if we see that the animal is lame, that can be highly contagious, and I'm sure you would not want to be going home from catching it at the fair, and you also shouldn't be sharing it with others. Some other infectious diseases, pink eye. Pink eye can be contagious. We will be in summertime. Summertime has flies. Flies like to, or they are very attracted to the moisture, the tears from the eye, and they will pick up the bacteria, go on to the next animal and spread it. And any potential foot and mouth disease like lesions. So any blisters inside the mouth, anything that looks like an ulceration or a blister, those things would definitely go home. And like the pigs, if we saw anything that resembled foot and mouth disease and the animal was already in the pen, then everything would be shut down. If it's on the trailer, we would likely take samples, get the trailer off the grounds and be done, and then continue on with the day. Non-infectious reasons includes the tag being in the owner's hand and not attached to the animal's ear. The animal is not listed on the CBI. Required vaccinations have not been administered, and an expired health certificate. Going back, I want to go back to these pictures of so you see in these photos here, when these here are either myself or one of my technicians holding the animals. These other photos that you see no gloves are owners or other people holding on to these animals. If we are getting this close and personal with your animals, we are putting on a fresh pair of gloves for your animals, and we are not, those gloves get tossed before we move on. Reminder, all health work can be done anytime after May 1st if you are in New York. Again, don't wait until the last minute to call the vet. And please call, text, or email me if you have any questions. And like I said, that includes myself or any of our other staff throughout the state. And again, don't use blue coat or red coat on the food producing animals. Again, they are not approved for these animals, so they should not be used on them. It's no extra label use. Questions? I have something in the chat. Oswego County requires rabies vaccination also. All right. Thank you. Okay. Cattle. Cattle are also required to have official identification. Again, we prefer the 840 RFID tags. They are not required this year, but highly recommended again. In the future, that is where we are heading, is 840 tags. But we do see more and more cattle with them. Again, they are free to New York herds. You can contact myself or any of our staff and we can get you the order form and potentially get you tags. Many of us have those tags out here in the field that we can issue to you. Many herd vets also have those tags. If you are a 4-H member, some of the 4-H offices also have those tags. And again, you can order these tags from supply companies as well, and you will need your premise ID number available to do that. These are some other tags that we do accept. So if the animal has been vaccinated against brucellosis, then we accept these orange 21V tags, 21D tags that were issued to vets, 21P tags are issued to producers, 21M tags are issued to dealers and markets, 21Z tags and now 21A tags are issued to Dairy One. And then if you are from any other state, you are going to have a different state code in the front. 35 is Ohio, 23 is Pennsylvania. So whatever state, and it would be if you purchased your animal from another state and it now resides here in New York, and it has a metal tag, that number is going to be different. It'd be issued to whatever state that animal was born in. These bangle tags, these plastic bangle tags are also acceptable for cattle. We are no longer manufacturing them and distributing them, but they are still considered to be official. Different styles of the 840 tags. We have the typical 840 RFID button tag. Out of the country, 124 is going to be Canadian. Canada has a maple leaf on theirs, but very similar tag. We also have visual 840 tags. These do not have an RFID portion, but they can be read using your eyes. And then we have these more complex tags that have the full 840 number as well as an RFID portion. So you can visually read it as well as scan it. I guess that was all on that. Some other tags that were that have been grandfathered in as long as the animal was born prior to March 11th of 2015. I'm thinking here within the next couple years, I can probably take these slides out because I'm thinking that all of these animals are probably going to be through the system at this point in time. Even though This 985 tag has a US shield on it. It is not considered to be official. The only RFID tags that we will accept will be an 840 number. So anything that begins with a 985 or a 982 will not be accepted unless the animal was born prior to March 11th of 2015. Some other tags that have been grandfathered in at that March 11th of 2015 date are our Holstein ID tags, our Jersey ID tags. If you still have animals that were born prior to March 11th of 2015 that will be coming to the fair, your vet should be writing USA, the 8-digit registration number, and the 4-digit or however many digits your individual animal ID is, just as this is written here. Same thing for this Holstein ID tag, the USA 629-49938, and then a slash with your 1464. That would be acceptable, like I said, only if the animal was born prior to March 11th of 2015. These tags are the same way. These fair tags, the vet should be putting the USA along with their 8-digit registration number and their individual animal ID number. So I have them written out here. And like I said, those are only acceptable if they were born prior to March 11th of 2015. All cattle are also required to be tested for BVD. We're looking for the persistent infection. BVD is bovine viral diarrhea virus, and it is highly contagious, causes respiratory, reproductive, and digestive issues. Testing can be performed on either an ear notch, serum, or whole blood. And cattle need to have proof of a negative BVD test written on the health certificate. Respiratory vaccination. They must be vaccinated against BVD, at minimum, BVD, IBR, PI3, and BRSV. If using a killed vaccine, it's highly advisable to try to give them a booster prior to fair as well. One dose of killed vaccine typically is not overly effective, but having that booster really boosts the immunity. Preferably, the vaccination should be given sometime after May 1st or close to that, if possible. Rabies vaccine. All cattle are required to be vaccinated as long as they are 4 months of age or older. You can begin vaccinating them at 3 months of age, but if they are going to turn 4 months of age at the fair, during the fair, then it's advisable that they have that vaccine before they arrive at the fair. And that's part of the reason why that 3 month of age ruling is in there. So if they're going to turn 4 months, make sure that during the fair, make sure that they are vaccinated prior to coming. The proof must also be written on the CVI. If you have market animals, there is the 21-day slaughter withhold. So definitely be mindful of that. Rabies vaccine lasts for 1 year. And it must be met by the day of admission to the fair. And again, if you have a calf that will turn 4 months old at the fair, then it needs to be vaccinated prior to coming. CVI, or your health certificate, they are required to have one of those as well. Again, in New York, it can be completed anytime after May 1st. All man-made identification should also be recorded. This includes bangle tags, tattoos, etc. Again, don't write on the CVI because you can invalidate it. When I say that, I know I see this probably more with cattle than any other species. Many times the vet has written the animal's identification numbers, their official ID, and any other IDs that they may have on here. And the people want to know which animal is which, so they want to write the name of the animal over here. Provide that to your vet. Your vet can write the name of the animal on here. It can be the first thing they do or the last thing they do on here. They can write the name on here. Just let them know that you would like to have the names on the health certificate. That's perfectly fine. Out-of-state requirements for cattle, official identification, interstate health certificate that needs to be issued within 30 days of entry into New York. And again, that is only good for 30 days. Rabies vaccination, the BVD test, the shipping fever vaccination, and refer to the interstatelivestock.com for any current interstate regulations. For cattle, I'm going to stress checking this before you go to shows this year. If you are going to be crossing state lines, I don't care what state you're going to. If you're going from New York to another state, or if you are coming from another state coming into New York, please check that. Just to be sure that you are meeting the correct regulations for interstate movement. And always refer to the animal health requirements posted for the show you are attending. Other requirements, cows that calve at a fair will be sent home ASAP unless they are in a birthing demonstration, and Erie County Fair has a birthing area for demonstration that we do allow some animals to calve in. Otherwise, in the general barns, there will be no calving at the fair. The reason for this is because a cow that has tested negative for BVD can still have a BVD positive calf. If we have a BVD positive calf, as well, that calf is going to come with a lot of amniotic fluid and a placenta. All of that would be highly contagious, and that would be exposing any other cattle, particularly the ones I'd be worried about are any pregnant animals and the llamas and alpacas on the fairgrounds. And we really do not want to be spreading BVD at a fair. It has happened in the past, and now there is a regulation requiring these animals to be tested. So that is the reason. And again, we keep our sheep and goats housed separately from the cattle due to the spread of malignant taro fever, and the cattle, it's lethal to the cattle. Other cattle requirements for reasons for rejection, we have bovine papular stomatitis, which has been seen around the state more and more frequently. So we're always on the lookout. This cow has a lesion here and other lesions here. This can appear similar to foot and mouth disease, but then it spreads out to a large lesion. Ringworm, very common in cattle, a very popular reason why we tend to send animals home from the fair. Mange, fortunately, we don't see a ton of it coming to the fairs, but this would be a reason why we would send animals home. So bald, patchy spots that are crusty, typically around the tailhead, the top of the udder. Foot rot, severe lameness, stinky feet, swollen coronary band. That would be a reason. Large warts. Warts are not necessarily contagious to humans, but are contagious from animal to animal, and they are very unsightly. So please try to get those tended to before you bring your animal to the fair. Any foot and mouth disease type lesions, you can see how these foot and mouth disease lesions are very similar to these bovine papular stomatitis lesions. And another reason would be calving. Non-infectious reasons would include no identification in the animal. Always make sure you attach your animal to its tag before you come. If the animal is completely not listed on the health certificate, I have had that situation before. If there's no proof of BVD testing, no proof of rabies vaccine, no proof of shipping fever vaccination, or expired CVIs, I have shipped animals home for pretty much all of those reasons in the past. Reminders again, all health work for New York animals can be done anytime after May 1st. Don't wait until the last minute to call the vet. Feel free to call, text, email me if you have any questions. Do not use blue coat or red coat on your food producing animals, please. I've already heard of a situation with a 4-H child who has used blue coat on their market animal, and I don't know what the county's gonna decide. The county 4-H office is gonna decide, but I have already had an incident this year. Any questions? I'm gonna go up to the chat. You've been at fairs where goats were housed alongside sheep in the same barn. Is that not supposed to happen? Um, so sheep and goats a lot of in at some fairs they are housed together. It's more about keeping the sheep and goats away from the cattle. That is probably the more important when we are deciding or trying to keep those animals separated so we do not expose naive cattle to malignant catarrhal fever. Let's see here. It was mentioned about Q fever. So Q fever is just one of the reasons why we do not have cattle calving out in the general population, or sheep and goats, cattle, any of those species. Does the vaccine for BVD, IBR, PI3, MBRSV be written on the CVI? Yes, that needs to be written on the CVI. I will go back to the CVI and show you where. So this column here is for all the rabies vaccination. This next column is for your bovine respiratory disease complex. Your vet should be writing in what vaccine they use on the line and what date they administered the vaccine. This last column is for the BVD testing. So the date, and I do have quite a few vets that actually will squeeze in the accession number from the lab, as well as the date that the test was, or that the sample was actually taken. Rabies, the vet should be writing in the kind of rabies vaccine. So if it's MRAB large animal, they should be putting MRAB LA, the date that they gave it, if it's a 1 year, a 3-year vaccine, or a booster. So for the sheep, if this is their second vaccine and it's going to be a 3-year vaccine, they can put the date and they can check the 3-year booster on that. If it's an adult cow that has been vaccinated multiple times, they could put the 1 year as well as a booster.
And then did you say the shipping fever vaccine needed to be given after May 1st?
It does not need to be. I recommend that you, just for the animal's immune system boost, it's highly recommended to give it on or around. I mean, if your vet is coming out to do your health certificate anytime after May 1st, that helps to boost their immune system before coming to the fair so that they're not picking something up at the fair. I know sometimes people, if you are a dairy that is on a routine vaccination schedule, they may say they gave the animal the vaccine in February. The vet may or may not write that vaccine on, or they may give a second booster vaccine, or some other intranasal vaccine or something like that to go along with the vaccine that has already been given. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so pretty much as long as there's one written on the paper, it doesn't have to
Yes.
be. Okay.
Right. It's just recommended that, it's just recommended. I mean, typically when you vaccinate an animal, their first vaccine, especially if it's a killed vaccine, you're going to get a little bit of a bump in immunity, and then it's going to start to go down. And then when you give them that next dose, you get a spike. And that's what you're looking for, is that spike. And realistically, your booster should be given at least 2 weeks prior to fair if you want to have that spike be at the highest point. And the whole point, especially if it's a breeding animal, you definitely want those animals to be protected. And if it's a market animal, I mean, my kids are in 4-H and my oldest shows steers. They've got a lot of money into these animals. You don't need them getting sick and then not being able to go through the sale at the end. So it's a good idea to definitely have them boosted so that they don't get sick while they're at the fair. Okay, any other questions?
Okay, I have one more. I'm sorry.
Okay, you're fine.
So, because I'm looking at because we're from Ohio and I'm looking at our health paper.
Okay.
So typically, like our BVD PI test is on a separate piece of paper
Okay,
where it comes back and states it's negative. So
Right.
can we just bring that with the health paper?
you can do that, but your vet should also be putting that on. There's space on the health certificate that they should, on the interstate papers, where they can put testing in and other vaccinations. They can write that on the health certificate as well.
Shannon, if they don't, will they be kicked out if that's not on the health paper?
As long as you have all of your proof, we'll be good.
Because I mean, literally, we were just in New York and I'm looking at it, and they just went off of our paper that came from the state. They didn't put it on the certificate.
Okay.
So that's why I'm asking.
Right.
And it's
So-
electronic, like Ohio's is all electronic now.
Okay. Yep.
Their
Yep.
health certificate.
And there should be a place where the vet can actually enter that information in to, if they're using Global Vet Link, there is a section in there that they can enter that in, so it shows up right on your health certificate.
Okay.
All of the vaccines, everything, they should be able to enter that right in.
Okay. I see where they put the rabies, but that's
Yep.
it. Okay.
Yep. Right in that area, they can add other vaccines, and they can add testing as well.
Well, they actually wrote it under the disease certificate statements.
Okay.
I don't know if that's right or not.
I guess it depends on what electronic program they are using. If they're using Global Vet Link or if they are using one of the other programs. But all right. Any other questions?
Shannon, one just came through the comments, chats.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Bringing in cattle from out of state, watching the time frame on the interstate website for updated requirements. So I did kind of mention that, to be sure, especially with cattle, to go to the interstatelivestock.com website. And if you are out of state, to double check what the requirements may be, because there could potentially be a shortened time frame for bringing in cattle from out of state, depending on what state they are coming from. New York has just passed an emergency regulation due to the avian influenza that has been found in dairy cattle. So this requirement currently is for any cattle coming from the affected states the paper needs to be issued within 10 days rather than that 30 days. I cannot guarantee where we're going to be in July or August, if that is still going to be shortened or what. It's a day by day waiting game. But if you are traveling right now, going to preview shows and whatnot, I would definitely utilize that interstatelivestock.com website, just to be sure that some of these states haven't shortened their time frames. Some of them are shortened time frames as well as additional testing for influenza. Some of them are just shortened time frames. So be sure that you're utilizing that, please. Okay. And moving on to the rest of the species. Equine. Horses are required to have a Coggins test, a negative Coggins test at that. The Coggins test is testing for equine infectious anemia. This is required for all horses 6 months of age and older. For New York horses, we will accept a Coggins where blood was drawn in 2023 or 2024 for this show season. Out-of-state horses, the test must be done within 12 months of the date of entry. The EIA certificate must include a complete drawing and description of the horse and a reminder that you should have your Coggins certificate or EIA certificate with you anytime you are transporting your horse on a public highway. That being said, I know sometimes people keep them in a glove box of a particular truck and that truck happens to break down, or a particular trailer, and then you decide that you're trailering with a friend or a different trailer that you have, and they sometimes get left at home. I do recommend that you take a photo of them and have them on your phone, because if you leave that truck, that trailer at home, or just accidentally forget your binder with your Coggins information, you typically don't forget your phone. Most people have them with them all the time. So try to remember to have your Coggins with you. These are some examples. The one on the left over here is an example of a handwritten Coggins. And this one on the right is an example of a digital one where we would actually have photos of the horses. If you are using, if your vet is using the digital version, Global Vet Link in particular, I'm going to mention that when you go to open it up, you need to download it first. If you don't download it, the results are not going to be at the bottom in the lower boxes, as to what laboratory tested the blood, the date that it was tested, and if it's positive or negative. So if this stuff shows up or does not show up on your Coggins certificate through Global Vet Link, download it to a PDF format first, and then it should be there. Rabies vaccination. Horses are required to be vaccinated against rabies, irregardless of what county you're going to. They must be at least 4 months of age or older, but they can be 3 months when you start vaccinating them. The proof can be written on a Coggins certificate or an actual rabies certificate. Some of the vets have computerized rabies certificates that they provide to you. Some of them use the little dog and cat certificates. They're fine. Some vets, we do offer a large animal rabies certificate that they could put, oh, I don't know if it's 50 animals, something like that. It's not anything that is carbon copy or anything, but they hand it to you, you have it. They may not have all of that information unless they took a photo of it or scanned it before they handed it to you. But there's different styles of rabies that we see for horses, but please be sure to have your rabies proof with you. The rabies vaccine lasts for 1 year, and it must be met on the day of admission to the fair. Out-of-state horses. So as I said, for the Coggins, the date of blood draw needs to be within the past 12 months. They also need to have a rabies certificate. They need to have an interstate health certificate issued within 30 days of entry. With that, if you are using an interstate health certificate, your vet can actually put the rabies information right on the interstate health certificate, which is pretty handy. Again, you can refer to the interstatelivestock.com for current regulations, and always refer to the regulations for whatever show you're going to. Other information, things that we see, we do go to the 4-H offices in the counties and check over the equine Coggins and rabies prior to the fairs to try to rule out potential problems that would get you rejected. Some of the most common issues that we find are mismatched information on the Coggins and the rabies. And this is anything from the name of the horse. And I do understand that, you know, you go and you buy a new horse and you want to call it something else, or the horse has a registered name and it also has a barn name or a stable name. Um, if they have those two names, or if you have changed the name and you're getting something new done, a new rabies, a new Coggins, whatever, make sure that all of that information is the same on both certificates. So if the horse's name was Belle, you bought her as Belle and you're gonna now call her Star. Make sure her new rabies certificate, if that's what you're getting, has both Belle and Star on it. And then the next year, you're going to get a new rabies and a new Coggins. You can change it to Star for the next year. But you cannot change a Coggins certificate once it is gone through the whole process of being tested. So we do see differences in, you know, name of horse, breed. The gender one always is amazing, because obviously if it's a mare on one paper and a gelding on the other, or a mare and a stallion, they're obviously, to me, they're not the same horse. Color, we've seen anything from gray to bay, and anything in between on the two different certificates. And the age, we've had anything from 8 years to 28 years. It's supposed to be the same horse. So when I see different information on the two certificates, that's telling me that you're providing me with two certificates from two different horses. Only the issuing veterinarian can make any changes. So if a change needs to be made on a rabies certificate, for example, it's only the issuing vet that can make that change. So mistakes do happen. They can get corrected ahead of time. But when you receive any of your paperwork back, make sure you look at it. Make sure it's correct. Other reasons for rejection for horses would include respiratory infection, any neurologic symptoms, ringworm, or anything that resembles ringworm. Non-infectious reasons would be an expired Coggins, expired rabies vaccination, expired health certificate if you're from out of state, or no health certificate, no Coggins, no proof of rabies, or the Coggins rabies health certificate, the description does not match the horse at all. Other information, excuse me. Oh, we do accept the electronic CVIs, and we do for all species. The Go Pass can actually be used as an entry document because it has all of your Coggins information right on there. And if you're lucky, your vet has put your rabies information on the Go Pass as well. Again, take a picture of your Coggins and your rabies certificates, because if you accidentally forget to bring your paperwork to the show, you should always have it with you. And your horse should always travel with its Coggins, no different than you traveling with your driver's license or your vehicle traveling with its registration and insurance card. I have a question in the chat. Oh, yes, a reminder, invoices do not, they are not the equivalent of a rabies vaccination certificate. Thank you, Sarah. We do see a lot of, when we're going through paperwork at the 4-H offices, we do see a lot of invoices for rabies certificates. They are not rabies certificates. They are invoices, or statements from the vet. Please get an actual rabies certificate. The rabies certificate actually has the brand of vaccine, the serial number, a signature from the vet. That's very important. It has all of that information on it. Llamas and alpacas, they are required to have official ID. We will accept any of the styles of ear tags that are approved for cattle, as well as microchips. We do recommend that you provide your own microchip reader in case ours does not read the type of chip you have. Typically, they do, but it seems like every year we have one animal that likes to give us problems, and we tend to utilize any and all readers that happen to be in the llama and alpaca barn to try to get them read. If ours does not read it. Uh, Typically the microchips for llamas and alpacas should be placed up by the ear. That they tend to not migrate as much as if you place them in the neck. BVD testing. Llamas and alpacas are required to have a negative BVD test for the persistent BVD infection. And this proof should be written on the health certificate. Again, it causes respiratory, reproductive, and digestive issues and is highly contagious. This can be performed using an ear notch, serum, or whole blood. And I know many of the llama and alpaca breeders are doing this when they register their animals. They are taking a sample and submitting it in order for them to be registered, which is very handy. They also need to have a health certificate if they're from New York, completed anytime after May 1st. Any man-made identification, so bangle tags or tattoos, should also be recorded on the CVI. And again, don't write on the CVI. Only the vet should be writing on the CVI. Again, here's an example of the health certificate. Excuse me. Rabies vaccination is not required, but highly recommended for most of the county fairs, with the exception of those counties that do require it. Animals must also be 4 months of age or older to be vaccinated, but they can begin getting vaccinated at 3 months. The vaccine requirement must be met by the day of admission to the fair, and it's good for 1 year. If you are from out of state with llamas or alpacas, you need to be sure that they have official ID, be sure that they have a BVD PI test, rabies vaccine if the show requires it, and an interstate health certificate issued within 30 days of entry. One thing I also want to mention about the microchips is if you have an animal that you are just putting a microchip into, I know a lot of times after you put the microchip in, a lot of people will try to read it right away, which is great to be sure that it's reading. However, I would give it a good 24 hours or so, and I would try to read it again. I think what happens sometimes is either the needle does not go into, like, it goes into their fluff on the top of their head, and they sometimes have a lot of fluff up there. So you got to be sure that needle goes in and goes all the way to the hub before it's injected. The other thing, so sometimes I think that the microchip gets deposited in their fluff, and other times I am wondering if the needle was not fully inserted to the hub and then it's injected in, if maybe it was only partially inserted and it was injected and the microchip works its way out the hole before that hole actually seals up and heals. So, give it a couple days and rescan to be sure that that microchip is still there. Reasons for rejection. So anything that resembles an eye infection, ringworm, we've seen ringworm on them. I guess I've not seen it very frequently, but I have seen it before. Mange, they tend to get crusties all around their eyes, up by their ears, around their nose. Extremely irritating. Non-infectious reasons would be no BVD test, no ID, the animal is not listed on the health certificate, or they have an expired health certificate. Poultry, do we have any questions about before I go on to poultry? Oops. keeps wanting to, flip. Trying to get my menu to come down. Okay, no new chats. Okay, poultry requirements. Palorum testing. So you must have either results of a negative palorum test within 90 days prior to exhibition, and these birds will have an official leg band, and this would be the result of going to a palorum clinic to have them tested, or proof that the birds originated from a U.S. palorum-free flock. And with that, you will receive an MPIP certificate or a purchase receipt containing the MPIP certification information. And that must be dated within 1 year of admission to the fair. If you are taking animals to a poultry or to a palorum clinic, and you are taking a turkey, blood is required to be drawn and sent to the lab. So you are not going to receive those results right then and there. Your chickens, you'll receive results right then and there. Exceptions for the testing include doves, pigeons, and waterfowl. I have listed here some of the counties. Erie County is on Monday, June 24th from 4 to 6 p.m. at the Erie County CCE. We do have, if you go to the Ag and Markets website, we do have, if you search palorum testing, it will take you to the page. It can be a little difficult to find if you're just trying to search the website. The easiest thing is just to type it into the search and it'll take you right to it. But that will give you a list of all of the counties that are doing palorum testing this year and when, the times, everything for them. If you are showing, say, at Erie County Fair and you cannot make that palorum clinic, you are free to go to any other county's palorum clinic. When you get your birds or have your birds there to be tested, it's wise that you let the technician know. Our technicians are typically the ones doing the testing, but let them know that you are not going to be showing at that county's fair, that you show at a different fair. And they typically will do a separate palorum test chart for your animals. That way they can send it on to your county. Out-of-state poultry need to have an interstate health certificate or the USDA VS Form 9-3 issued within 30 days of entry. They must be from an MPIP palorum typhoid-free flock or tested within 90 days of entry. They also must be from an MPIP H5H7 avian influenza clean flock, or at least 30 birds from the flock have been tested within 10 days of entry. If you go to the www.agriculture.ny.gov/animals/poultry, that will provide you with any current information, especially pertaining to avian influenza. Other reasons that we would reject animals: if we see any lice or mites on the animals, if we have any sort of respiratory disease that resembles avian influenza, and let's face it, all respiratory diseases in birds and chicken and poultry resemble avian influenza. At the very beginning, especially. Non-infectious reasons would be no palorum testing, no CVI or VS93 if you are from out of state, or no avian influenza testing if you are from out of state. Again, we house the swine and poultry separately due to potential avian influenza cross-contamination. Rabbits. Rabbits must be healthy, have no signs of snuffles, which is a runny nose, diarrhea, fleas, lice, mites, anything that looks contagious, potentially contagious. Typically the barn superintendents are checking in the rabbits, so if anything is sent home by the rabbit check-in station for any reason, please inform us, because we do have a form that we need to fill out. Nothing Nothing huge, just a quick rejection certificate as to why they were sent home. No new rabbits should be brought in after the initial check-in unless it's a changeover day. So that's something else to consider. Rabbits, any fleas, lice, mites, anything like that. Here's what snuffles can appear to look like. I guess that's all for rabbits. Moving on to canine, for our 4-H dog show friends. They are required to have rabies vaccination. Either the 1-year or the 3-year vaccine, depending on the age of the animal and the brand of the vaccine. They should have a proof of license. That's highly recommended. The rabies, they need to have a rabies certificate. Again, a certificate, not an invoice. So make sure that you have your rabies vaccination certificate with you. Or turn it into the 4-H office. We do check the dog information at the 4-H office as well. I always recommend microchipping. Microchipping your dogs, your cats, your horses. It's a great way to identify your animals. It's not required, but highly recommended. I know during some of the hurricanes, many animals that had been displaced were returned to their owners because of microchips and them being they actually registered the microchips online so that there was some traceability there. So that's kind of a cool thing that they can be reunited with their owners. Feline, I know Erie County does not have a cat show. I do have one county in my territory that has a cat show. So I'll go through it real quick. So it's on the recording. Rabies vaccination is required, either the 1 or 3-year, depending on age of an animal and the brand of vaccine. So they need to have the rabies certificate. And again, the microchips are a great form of ID. That's pretty much it for cats. Reminders, all health work can be done anytime after May 1st. Please don't wait to the last minute to call the vet. The large animal vets are very, very busy, and there are not as many of them as there used to be. If you have questions, remember you can call myself, you can call any of our staff, and either call us, text us, email us. If the 4-H office is requesting any proof of testing and vaccinations, especially for horses, dogs, and cats, please try to get that information to them. They are supposed to keep it on file for insurance purposes, but it also makes it handy for me to review the paperwork prior to the fair, so any corrections can be made if necessary. Once you receive your health certificate or any of your Coggins, your rabies, any of that information, please take it out of the envelope to inspect it when you receive it. Be sure the tag numbers are correct. Be sure that all the animals that you wanted listed are listed. Be sure that all the necessary vaccinations and tests that are required are listed. Don't alter the CVI yourself. If it's incorrect, contact your vet and have them make the corrections. They are required to make those corrections. They are required to initial it and date it when they do it. If you are found to have altered a health certificate, the first offense is a warning from the Albany office, and you are watched very closely by all of the state field personnel at the fairs. That whole list of all of the vets and all of the techs, we are all constantly communicating amongst each other during fair season. We know names as to who's been rejected, where, what animals, what species, and we do watch. The second offense for altering a CVI is you will be banned from exhibiting animals for 3 years at any county or state fair in New York State. So I encourage you to not alter the CVI, even if you think that you're just putting the name of your animal on CVI. Don't do it. Don't put check marks on it because, okay, this animal loaded on the trailer. If you need to do something like that, make a photocopy of it and write on your photocopy. The other thing is we need to see original health certificates. We do not like seeing photocopies. Please have the original health certificates available for us. A reminder for your food animals, blue coat and red coat are only to be used on horses and dogs. That's the only thing that they're labeled for. So if you have any of those other species that we have talked about this evening, don't use your blue coat and red coat on those species, especially if they're food producing animals. Again, some reminders to please be respectful to the Ag and Markets veterinary staff, be respectful to the fair board. Please don't bring sick animals to the fair and don't show up at the last minute. Checking in off the trailer is much safer and more efficient because we're hopefully not taking disease into the barn if an animal has a disease. Again, our goal is to prevent the spread of any contagious and zoonotic diseases to the animals, exhibitors, and spectators. Any questions? Oops. What just went on here? There we go. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. Do we have any more questions? I don't see any more in the chat. All right, do you want me to stop recording now?
Yes, please. Thank you, everybody. Thank you,
You're
Shannon.
welcome.
I
You're
appreciate it.
welcome.